All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Weight and Fat Loss Summit. I am Walter Lewis, your fitness coach, and today we have health and life coach Rachel Harmston, who is also a garden specialist. And today she's going to be discussing trust your gut, learning to listen to your body. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Walter. Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here for the virtual summit. As Walter said, we're going to be talking about trusting your gut. What I call it is tummy talk in my practice. So getting to know your belly, what's happening in your core, a little bit more on digestion, and how this is kind of like a lost practice in our culture today. So to get started, Walter and everyone else, I will have us just take a moment to ground ourselves so we're listening to this conversation. It's not going to be crazy long. I want everyone to be engaged, so take a moment to get yourself grounded. A couple deep breaths. If you want to close your eyes, you can. I'd like you to place your hands, both hands on your stomach, on your core area. You can massage around or just feel the warmth of this beautiful beast of a machine that never sleeps. I want you guys to think about all those organs inside of there and what they're doing. Think about the digestion, the siphoning out of toxins, the balancing of nutrients. A couple more deep breaths. Notice any points of tension that you have. Towards your stomach, a little bit lower towards your intestines, maybe on a certain side of your body. You can go ahead and get back into a resting position. Open your eyes as you're ready. And the last thought I want to leave you guys with right now is the thought of how often you think about those things. How often are you thinking about what's going on in your stomach? I know for most of us, including myself, I mean, in general, once food goes in my mouth, chewed up, swallowed, that's it. That's all I think about. Things are happening and I'm just going about my day. So we don't really give enough credit or enough thanks to what's happening inside there. I really like to think of it, and it's kind of a new introduction to a lot of people, as the sixth sense. So digestion is my sixth sense, and it's a concept that is kind of new around the board in the health field, because we have these very important senses that we pay close mind to. We teach our youngsters all about sight, touch, hearing, taste, smell, all that stuff. I have almost 1-year-old niece right now, and we're playing with all of the sensory stuff, but we don't think about any of the things that are going on in here. And we're learning a lot about what she can eat and what she eats well and digests well. We're learning about that as parents and aunties, maybe the hard way, but we're not really teaching her what's best for her body. And that is kind of a common practice, unfortunately, for us to ignore the signs of our bodies. Now, we're seeing that a lot in mental health right now. And it's coming to the forefront of everybody being more comfortable, being able to present that in their workplace, in their personal life. But again, 10, 20 years ago, that was a foreign thing. So now we're getting into listening to our gut and being able to respect our gut and establish, put your foot down when your gut's telling you something. Hey, I need to take a break and listen to my body. So I'm going to give you guys a couple tips at the end of this for you to be able to tune in more to your tummy. But I do want to kind of bring a couple questions back and forth between myself and Walter, and I'm going to give everyone here a second to think about those questions before we give you solid answers. This is just to think about how drastic it is that we are ignoring what's happening in our bodies until we get to that point of, ew, I feel gross, or I need to sit down, or I'm nauseous, and those are our trigger points, but we want to avoid those. We don't really want to get to that point. So Walter, I'm going to ping you with a couple questions. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to wait before we hear his answer. And I want you guys to think about the answer that you would think personally for yourself. So question number 1, these are kind of fun. Okay. Question 1, when you're eating a classic meat and potatoes meal, what type of activities do you feel like partaking in afterwards?
Oh, if I'm eating meat and potatoes, I just feel like sitting down, relaxing, and maybe taking a nap.
I agree. And I would say most people around the board would agree. I like to think of the meat and potatoes meal as like your Thanksgiving dinner. That's the
Huh?
extreme side of it, right? But
Right.
it's right here, holiday season, right?
Right.
So that feeling that you'll have, it's kind of groggy. I don't think many people are going to go sit down and have their meat and potatoes meal and go run a marathon. It might
Right.
not settle well.
Right. Absolutely
So,
not.
and that's a common, staple in our diet. So that's just something to think about when, if you're going to eat a salad, you might feel like, okay, I could go do a few things. You might get
Right.
hungry sooner,
Right.
but, okay, question number 2.
Okay.
When you are at work, say your standard 9 to 5 or whatever your standard day is, do you watch the clock for lunchtime?
Okay. So because I'm a trainer, um,
You're special.
it's probably a little different because I love what I do. So a lot of time I'm having so much fun, I'm never really watching the clock. But I will say, when I was working in an office setting, that I would watch the clock. So your question again was about, what was it about watching the clock?
Yeah, when you're at work, are you watching the clock for lunchtime?
Oh, yes, definitely. I'm watching the clock.
Right,
You know,
right. I know in this, the standard workplace, I've heard many times while I've been in the office, hey, it's noon, it's lunchtime, we made it, guys.
yes,
So
exactly. So,
everyone scurries to get food, right?
absolutely.
Um, one of the things I'm going to touch on in a moment here is how you should wait for your body to tell you when it's lunchtime, your body to tell you when it's mealtime, rather than, setting yourself up for the 3 meals a day. If you're not doing anything all day, you might not need 3 meals a day. We should be able
Exactly.
to listen to our bodies, right?
Absolutely.
I'll get to that in a moment.
All right.
Question number 3 here. Which one do I ask? I got a list here of fun ones.
Okay.
So, do you more often eat the entirety of what's on your plate or what feels right to eat in that moment?
Well, it depends on how good it is, for one. I love breakfast. So if it's a good breakfast meal, I'm gonna likely eat everything on the plate. But if it's
Yeah.
a meal that I'm, let's say it doesn't taste good, or I don't really want, I'm not going to eat all of it. So it depends on what it good and how good it is.
Okay, so you go off of how good it is, the flavor aspect. If it's
Yes.
hitting the spot, you're about to finish the whole plate.
Yes.
Awesome. And that's fair. Your body's telling you too, okay, I can handle all of this. Now, do you ever reach a point of like, this is so good, but there's still a portion left that I could totally take home?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I go through those moments
Okay.
that I eat
And
everything on the plate. Yeah.
then there's the decision, right? It's like, I could totally eat it all. I know I could eat it all. It tastes so good. But then you're
Right.
going to feel a little, ugh.
Right. So I think about that more so when I have cheat meal. If I have a cheat meal, like, a burger and some fries, which is very fattening. And if it's good, I can eat, probably 2 burgers and a large order of fries. So I can eat, if I eat one and it's good, I might want to have another. Even that I don't do that. Now, back in the day, I would do something like that, but now I don't do that.
Now you know what's gonna happen in your
Right. I
belly,
know
right?
the
Yeah.
consequences. I know it's going to give me a fat belly, and I know how I'm going to feel afterwards, and I don't want that feeling. I know how it's going to affect my health also.
Right, right. So you're factoring it in. I mean, and that's the perks of having the knowledge base that you have, which is another thing we're lacking in general in our society is knowing, just knowing
Right.
shared nutrient knowledge. Okay, I'm gonna throw a couple other fun ones at you. When you're tired, do you
Mhm.
catch yourselves craving or utilizing food or beverage to get you through the day, to get you that energy?
I'm going to relate when I was in an office setting. When I was in an office, and sometimes, yeah, when I was tired, I would find myself snacking more, just to get through. And I think part of it is boredom. And so I would snack or eat something just because, especially if it was there in my face and if it was free.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So sometimes I do that when I'm tired. Even when I'm home, you know, um, I don't do it as much as I used to now. If I'm sitting down watching TV, you see all of these commercials, I'm tired at the same time. Like I got a taste for something sweet. And even if I'm tired, I may go and get it. That's what I used to do. I don't do that as much now.
So you're exercising self-control and like years of
Absolutely.
experimenting with the pains of binging.
Absolutely, because it is my job, is my profession. I can't tell people to do what I'm not doing. But there was a
Yes.
period in time where I was telling people to do it and I wasn't doing it. But now that I'm older and I know the health consequences, I'm able to resist a little bit more.
Fair, fair. Yes, practice what you preach. We got to get good at that too at some point.
Exactly.
Okay, a couple other ones. If you ever, I'm not sure if you do drink, but if you have or experimented with one glass of wine or a couple drinks or a night out, do you notice the effects? Does it affect your body when you put a direct toxin that we know is a toxin into your body? Do you notice effects in your day's performance afterwards, or just your bodily functions while doing
Well, actually, I don't drink, but everybody around me does. All of my clients, just about majority of my clients do. And I've had them come where they had hangovers, and so I see the effect of them.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't drink wine, so I mean, I really couldn't tell
Performance is inhibited though, and I use that as an example because everyone knows that alcohol is a disabling factor in.
you. Absolutely.
That's just an outright one. Now I'm thinking in any ingredient label you're going to find other toxins that we're putting right into our bodies that have similar effects. It's just not as well known that that's a disabler.
Right.
So alcohol is the forefront of the things that everyone seems to be doing, and it's definitely taking its toll.
Yes.
Last question I'm going to hit you with right now. Do you feel greater mental clarity upon eating certain foods versus others?
Absolutely. When I'm eating fruits and vegetables, drinking a lot of water, I definitely feel more energetic. Even if I don't get a whole lot of sleep, if I'm eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, I'm definitely able to think better and just be more energetic as compared to if I'm eating bread, or something heavy. I'm just thinking, okay, I want to take a nap. And so I'm not able to think as well. So definitely what I eat makes a difference.
Okay, awesome. And that's pretty much around the board. And it doesn't have to be you're only eating fruits and vegetables, but just a large portion of what you're doing, earth-based,
Yes.
usually has a clearer effect on your mental state. And it all kind of ties back to that like groggy sleepiness.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you said, any of those heavier foods, starch heavy, carb heavy, anything, they all kind of have the same effect. It's
Right.
being processed differently in your body. So we can go a whole lot deeper into that, but for the sake of time, I do want to give you guys my quick story, how I started thinking about what's happening in my body and where I came to this tummy talk solution. So when I was young, I had stomach ulcers, and that was like at 11 or 12 years old. So I was too young to really know what was going on. But my doctors put me on this super bland diet. Wasn't any fun for a kid, I'll tell you that. But it did help. It significantly helped. It was mostly plant-based, but I was avoiding acidic things like citrus and tomatoes, things like that. So kind of a neutral plant-based diet, a couple grains in there. They took me away from anything that was dairy. And it was about a year later, I started to dabble back into the diet of my friends and my family. And that included hopping back into things like Doritos and Tombstone pizza and mac and cheese and all those fun things. But as soon as I would eat those things, I would immediately have a reaction. So my first touch back with, your standard American diet triggered me. And that was due to an illness, right? I had to start taking notes on everything I ate, every single thing I ate as like a 12-year-old, write it down. And then if I had an episode that night when I was sleeping, which I'd be waking up in the middle of the night with excruciating pain, I had to, I noted those things. And my specific trigger was totally correlated with the ingredient label. So anything that had an ingredient label that basically had a word on it I couldn't read, those were my triggers. So I had to completely walk around the grocery store, avoid any internal aisles that had the preservatives, the chemicals, any of that stuff, which as a child, that was no fun, right? But now today it's taught me a lot. But I didn't have my aha moment until I was a couple years ago in college, actually, I was living on a farm in New Zealand, and we were only eating what we could harvest. So there were, what we'd plant, we'd replace, and then we'd harvest from different areas. And I was asked a bunch of questions similar to the ones that I was just kind of pinging you with, from one of the farmers who had been there for like 70 years. And it just hit me. I was like, whoa, I'm a vegetarian. Like, my body is, I do best on vegetables. It hit me out of nowhere. I had never thought, because I liked meat, I had never really thought that about living a month on a farm only eating vegetables. It just didn't cross my mind at all. I had just always had it in front of me. So I realized how clear I was, how energetic I was. No other elements had changed, right? I was still socializing how I normally would, studying how I normally would, sleeping, exercising, all that stuff was the same. The only element that had changed was my diet. So I switched to being a very strict vegetarian immediately. And since then, I've totally fluctuated with my diet as I've been learning the perfect diet for me. But that was kind of my like, whoa, I totally don't need that much meat, if any meat, in my diet moment. And I didn't realize how severely that affected me. So that was just my like little story, my aha moment. Everyone's going to have their own, but this conversation is mostly to get you thinking about, hey, I've tried the no carb diet, it didn't work. I've tried being a vegan, it didn't work. I've tried the keto, all these diets are out here. There's thousands of them.
Right.
None of them are your diet per se, right?
Right.
And your diet is definitely not my diet, because the portion size and the, the things that are going to do best for Walter are not going to be the best things for Rachel or anyone else, right?
Right.
So after that, I would say I was a little extreme, maybe, very, very strict. And then I began, again, dabbling back into trying different things. And now I can note just mentally, I don't have to take notes, but I can note and just say, okay, that felt good. I didn't have any issues, didn't have to think about my digestion, didn't feel like I needed to go grab an antacid pill, didn't feel like, any type of grogginess. So now I can mentally note, and that just comes with experimenting, with age, with time, right? It's not going to come to you right away. But there's a couple of things that I want to kind of roll into, and then I'm going to hit those three tips. I want everyone to think of your brain as a very primitive thing still. Now, our society has advanced way past, the caveman era, but we still have that survival instinct in our mind. So when you get those sweets and fats and the things that are being put into our food today, your body is saying, yes, hold on to that, have that, store that, keep that, because we don't know when we're going to get food next. Now, most of us, if you're listening to this webinar, you're probably not in a survival situation. You're probably going to have a meal today, tomorrow, consistency in our food schedule. That primitive thing is still in our mind, though, and still in our body. So our body is going to take all of those yummy fats and sugars and put them somewhere as if we're still in this survival mode. That's a good thing to know. So to start listening into your body, trick number one, these are the three things I'm going to have you carry with you. Trick number one is to check in with yourself when you feel hungry. So if you're starting to feel hunger at all in any capacity, stop, think, maybe ground yourself, do the practice that we just did at the beginning, feel your tummy, listen. Because a lot of times we're like, I'm hungry, log out of my computer, go grab food, right?
Right.
Just like we're creatures of habit. Food, eat, shove it in our mouths, and we're good to go.
Right.
But checking in, giving yourself a minute before food is in your face is so important, because while it's in your face, you make choices kind of irrationally. So something I recommend to do is just acknowledge your energy level. Are you tired, sluggish in that moment? Are you bored? Are you alone? Are you, what's happening outside of, the hunger? Another thing that you should do while checking in is probably have a glass of water, because oftentimes hunger is totally correlated to thirst. So in general, a lot of us are probably dehydrated, maybe not completely dehydrated, but to a sense. So if you have an empty belly and you stop to think about, hey, I'm hungry, give yourself a couple minutes. What am I hungry for? What am I needing? Have a glass of water, put about that much water in your stomach, then your belly's not going to be so desperately hungry, right? Regardless, the only downfall to drinking too much water is you'll be going to the bathroom more. So there's no reason to not have that extra glass of water when you're thinking of hunger. And then acknowledge when you last ate. So if it's lunchtime, think about, okay, I'm starting to get hungry. It's 12:45. I had breakfast around 8 a.m. It's about time for me to have something else, right?
Okay.
So there should be a gap in time. You shouldn't be looking at your clock and saying, oh, I ate an hour ago and I'm starving again. Something's off there, right?
Okay.
So those things are all just checking in with yourself before you actually get food in your face, before you get food in your mouth, acknowledging your hunger. That's
Okay.
number one. Number two, eating over time. So basically, we probably spend about 10 minutes eating if we're lucky for most of our meals throughout our busy schedules. Maybe it's at your desk, you're still typing, you take a couple bites, type a little more. Spacing out your meals. So regardless of the meal it is, spending your time eating over minutes instead of over seconds. I usually say about a 20-minute meal is good. And then spreading those meals out as well. So when you're thinking about eating, you shouldn't be eating 3 meals in 4 hours, 5, 6 hours. You should be eating your 3 meals over maybe your 12-hour day or something. And then while you're eating, space out the minutes that you're eating. So if you're typically eating in 10 minutes, start aiming to eat for 20 minutes. A little trick of the trade, I always say, put your utensil down at least 3 times while eating. So if you're shoveling it in, which there are times I know where we're shoveling it in and it's the only practical thing to do, but as you're able, set the fork down and just give it a couple seconds to fully chew and to fully digest. We are a speedy eating culture. So set the fork down. That's one trick that definitely has come in handy for me. So number 2 is spend your time eating, take your time eating, I should say, and space those meals out appropriately so you're not cramming everything in just because 3 meals is what we're supposed to eat. You don't necessarily need to have those 3 meals smashed in. And then the third tip, which this one is going to take a little more time for you to gauge with yourself. We shouldn't be eating to full capacity. So as I was saying, if you have this empty stomach, you put a little water in there, you shouldn't be filling to the brim with food. You don't want to have that Thanksgiving dinner feeling every day. You don't want to be completely full. You don't need a whole pizza and just be, completely maxed out. That just messes with your digestion entirely. So you have a certain amount of digestive fluids in your body, and if you're, kind of skewing the scale, you're not going to be able to digest those things in a proper rate anyways. So filling up to about 70 to 80% is about what I say. So you're not hungry anymore. You've passed 50%. You're not, floating down below where your hunger scale. You get to about 70 or 80%. And I also like to think of it as a gas tank. So if you're filling up your car, is your car going to run significantly better off of 100% full, or will it run exactly the same at 70% full? You're going to get the same fuel, but your body's not going to be weighed down by the heaviness of the gas. It's going to have the same amount. Get everything going. You're going to be on the way on the road, but you're not going to be weighed down by a full tank. So number 3 is only eat to about 70 or 80% full. Those are the 3 main tips. Now there's a whole bunch more, and every single person's going to have their own diet plan. I myself, I don't get hungry in the mornings. I get hungry close to mid-morning. I'll do a light breakfast kind of snack, maybe around 10 or so. And that's all I need. I don't wake up hungry. Now, there have been times when I've waken up hungry and I'll, listen to my body in that sense and also be fluid with it. I'm not crazy strict. So I know that you have a couple questions for me, Walter, and I'm very happy to continue this conversation at any point with anybody that's listening right now. My company is called Living Growth. I do individual health and life coaching. I do fitness planning as well. And I do gardens. So my windowsill right over here in my own house is full of herbs. So I bring gardens to people to help their green space be enhanced accessibly. But yeah, go ahead and hit me with a couple questions.
Okay. So we just have a few minutes left, but let me go back and try to summarize what you just said. So I guess, so you gave six things. So I don't know. So the first 3 you said, take a second before you eat, and then you said drink water, and third you said acknowledge when you ate last.
Yes. So in that same, I like to think of that as one thing. So while you're acknowledging what before you eat,
Okay,
there are things within that. So like 3 little bullet points under that to follow. And those 3 things are: acknowledge your energy level,
okay,
acknowledge your hydration, and when you last ate.
okay.
So try to just check in with those 3 things while you're checking in with yourself before you're in the face.
Before you go actually eat. Okay, and
Yeah.
then the second set of items you gave was eat over minutes. So spread it out when you're eating, and then you said, and then space out your meals within a 12-hour day,
Right.
and then don't eat to capacity. So eat to about 70%.
Yes, you got it. Yeah. So those are the 3 things. And like I said, there's bullet points that can fall underneath there, a million bullets, but those are just a couple quick ones that we could squeeze in today.
Okay, so I'm gonna just ask one other question. So how does one initially identify if their digestion is off, and what are the signs that people can look out for?
Okay. So this is a good one, and this is definitely going to be easy for everyone to start pinging on their own map. Bloating is one that I know we have all experienced. So notice your bloating. Think back if you're feeling bloated that day or you're actually seeing the bloat. Think about, what did I eat in like the last 24 hours? And then you could start noting, say you had pizza, you had a salad, and you had a soda pop, right? And then for your other meal, you maybe had a meat and potatoes meal. Okay, so you had a lunch and a dinner there. Note those things. And then maybe a week later, you're noticing bloat again. And similarly, you had pizza and a soda pop. Maybe there's a correlation, right? Maybe the meat and potatoes meal didn't bother you because you didn't have that again when you saw the next bloat. So you'll be able to start tracking kind of. And if you're good at mentally noting, that's awesome. If you want to spread, maybe 2 weeks noting your meals and then looking back and say, at the end of your night, check in, how does your body feel? Good. Next day, not so good. Take notes on yourself. But it's going to take a bit of time. Bloating is just one. I also say acid levels. If you feel that, like you're feeling like a heartburn or an acidic kind of a indigestion, that's something to note as well, because that's just saying that whatever's happening with your stomach acid, it's kind of firing up. Things are definitely not happy in there. And that could come with intolerances. So maybe your gluten intolerance, maybe your dairy intolerance, maybe you don't handle like citrus. There's so many different things that you might be intolerant against. You'll also see multiple factors. And there is a point where you should go to your doctor, right? You should go to your doctor and say, hey, maybe I'm celiac, if you do see, grains really bothering you. The other thing is restlessness. If you feel, or being too tired. So if there's an extreme, like I can't sleep tonight, why didn't I sleep? Check your diet. Was there something that you maybe ate in the last 6 hours before you went to bed that kept you awake? I can't personally take vitamins in the second half of the day. So I take my vitamins the first half of the day. Vitamins for me keep me awake for some reason. And it took me a while to figure that out, right? I was like, what am I doing? I was taking evening vitamins and that was killing me. So check your sleeping habits. If you can't sleep, or if you're sleeping too much, that's probably in some way correlated to your diet as well.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, we've come to an end. So I just want to say thank you for your time. So what is your website if somebody wanted to find more information about you?
Yes. My website is livinggrowth.org. So living growth, livinggrowth.org. I also have a couple other social media platforms, but if you check out the website, you'll be able to link in. You can get more tummy talk and check out my other programs. Happy to just have conversation, do a consultation, or give you more information on any of the programs. But tummy talk is a fun one.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rachel. So just hold on there. I'm going to end the recording and I'll talk to you just in a few.